The American Judicature Society was incorporated in July of 1913. In the early 20th century, public confidence in the American court system was in jeopardy. Politicians were stacking the bench with their friends and supporters, the courts were inefficient, confusing, and decentralized, and it was difficult for litigants to receive a fair hearing. The American Judicature Society was founded to serve as a nonpartisan, broadly based voice for justice system reforms and improvements. Early leaders of AJS included prominent judges, lawyers, and law professors. They came together to modernize the justice system and reduce the influence of politicians and special interests on the courts. The primary issues of concern in the early years of AJS focused on unifying the management and administration of the courts, rewriting court rules to be more consistent and understandable, and boosting public trust in the courts by improving the quality of our judiciary. Today, our membership and leadership is diverse and broadly based, representing people from all walks of life who care about the quality of justice in America. We still seek to reduce political influences on the courts, eliminate favoritism, and promote the highest standards of professionalism, ethics, and impartiality in the judiciary. Today, the Society is a voluntary, membership-based organization completely independent from any government influence. Membership is open to anyone who shares a commitment to our mission. We are the voice representing the public interest in a fair and effective justice system, not the agenda of any one profession or interest group. The American Judicature Society currently works to effectively engage a broad-based constituency of individuals and organizations to actively support fair, impartial, qualified, and effective courts that are free from political and financial influences. We conduct research on the justice system, then, based on sound findings, we publish articles, editorials, and special reports that offer informed recommendations for improvements and reforms. We are committed to educating the next generation of students and scholars, as well as lawyers, judges, policymakers, and opinion leaders, about the critical importance of fair and impartial courts. Our vision is for a court system that is well-funded, open, and accessible to all, and staffed by the very best judges and support staff. Emerging democracies around the world seek to emulate the U.S. model for the judiciary. It's one of the things that sets the United States apart from nearly all other advanced democracies. The rule of law, guaranteed by an independent and co-equal judicial branch, makes all other advancements possible, such as economic growth, public safety, individual rights and liberties, a free press, and freedom of speech and political dissent. We must always remain vigilant in safeguarding our uniquely independent courts, which guarantee our rights and liberties under law. For a century, AJS has stood as a nonpartisan bulwark against politicians and special interests on the left and right who have tried to bend the courts to their will. Our system of justice must never be sold to the highest bidder, and the fairness of our courts must never be compromised for short-term political gain or financial advantage. The American Judicature Society has a long track record of standing up to powerful interests that would sacrifice fair and impartial courts to advance their own selfish goals. And over the course of our nation's history, the American people consistently come down on the side of an independent and fair judiciary. Americans instinctively understand that the courts exist to protect the rights and liberties of all people, not just the few who have the money or power to buy a favorable result. AJS works tirelessly with allies across the country to reinforce this basic civics lesson, that our democracy is only as strong as the rule of law that underpins it. These principles translate into a number of important objectives: to resist efforts to inject political and financial considerations into the selection of judges by promoting merit-based appointment of judges at all levels of the court system; to encourage states to adopt the highest standards of conduct and ethics for their judges, and to hold judges accountable when they violate their codes of ethics; to help courts serve all the people and not just those who can afford a lawyer; to improve the accuracy and reliability of evidence presented in criminal trials, particularly eyewitness identifications and forensic science evidence, and to maintain and strengthen the American jury system through better treatment of jurors and efforts to expand the diversity of the jury pool. One of the great strengths of the American Judicature Society has always been its broadly based, nonpartisan approach to judicial reform. As the late Chief Justice William Rehnquist once said, paraphrasing General and former President Dwight Eisenhower, "Just as war is too important to be left to the generals, judicial reform is too important to be left to lawyers and judges." AJS is the only membership-based organization devoted solely to improving the courts that includes non-lawyer citizens, lawyers, judges, educators, and others as members. While judges and lawyers have great expertise and a vested interest in improving the system, everyone who uses the courts has an equally strong interest in seeing that fair and impartial justice is guaranteed to all. We have built solid relationships with those working in the judicial system, but also with people in different walks of life to ensure their voice is represented in a process they aren't always familiar with. We work to bring together those who care about courts as an American institution. Because of this, both sides trust us, knowing that we are not politically motivated or affiliated with any special interest group. Courts exist to serve the people, not the other way around. The public has a right to a strong, fair court that is accessible to all. Our research studies, some conducted directly in the courts, have helped train juries to better understand their roles, trained judges on topics pertaining to ethics, and identified specific ways to look at court rules or procedures and how they can impact a trial's outcome. A society built on the rule of law and democratic accountability must have a fair judicial system to succeed. We work with the system, but also represent the public for whom the system was designed. We believe we help the judicial system reflect the diversity of the people it serves and be guided by a commitment to fair treatment for all, from the self-represented litigant to the largest corporation. The American Judicature Society has a long track record of studying courts and proposed reforms within them. AJS is driven to study how the justice system actually works. We are committed to top-notch scholarship and research on the courts, and we make policy recommendations based on observable reality, not on ideological agendas or preconceived notions. We bring together scholars and students from different areas of study, such as law, political science, sociology, psychology, and economics, to diversify the range of our perspective. Our justice system isn't just about the law, and it isn't just for lawyers and judges. It's much bigger than that. It's about how people are treated in court and the public perception of the fairness of the process. We have no political agenda. People know we are trying to improve the system so it works as well as it possibly can. We are looking out for the public interest. The law and the courts benefit from input from those outside of the system, including business, labor, and those who have a stake in a fair system. We are the voice of our broadly based, independent, dues-paying membership. Our members include non-lawyers, members of the legal profession, educators, business and civic leaders, and many others who realize that the American legal system influences virtually every aspect of our economy and society. AJS has never supported any political party or its agenda. We are completely nonpartisan in our approach. A recent survey confirms that fully 87% of respondents viewed AJS as a trusted, nonpartisan voice. We have an active and engaged board of directors from a wide range of backgrounds and experience, and our outstanding professional staff possesses great expertise on the courts. Through engaging with those both within and outside of the system, the American Judicature Society helps ensure that the American justice system lives up to its lofty promise to provide equal justice for all. The American Judicature Society measures its effectiveness in several different ways. First, by our ability to reach diverse audiences with educational programming, messages, and research on the American judicial system. For instance, we look at how many teachers use our lesson plans or programs to educate the next generation about the court system. We also look at how much we can influence the public debate on the role of the courts by tracing our outreach efforts and measuring how often we are quoted or how often our research is used by others. We strive to inform leaders in the executive and legislative branches of government, in academia, and in the media about the latest research and best practices to promote effective court systems. When the news media requests a quote from us regarding their latest investigative report, or our website hits reflect interest in a current hot topic, we know people are looking at us as a trusted resource. We also gauge our success in working with judicial leaders to implement research-based reforms and improvements in the administration of justice. We know we've made a difference when we see success in research-based programs such as promoting reforms nationwide in eyewitness identification procedures. For a century, we have been a trusted source in court decisions, with our scholarly articles being cited multiple times throughout the years. Judges use our materials to help them arrive at better decisions. And we see success when we can convince voters and political leaders to adopt and defend fundamental reforms such as merit-based selection of judges and strong ethics codes for the judiciary. Because we carefully define, target, and strategically implement each of our efforts, we can determine the effectiveness and success of each. The very nature of the American Judicature Society is often misinterpreted. We have a somewhat old-fashioned sounding name, the American Judicature Society. The term judicature simply means the administration of justice. But it can be a bit difficult to pronounce, and it certainly leads some people to think we are an organization only for judges. But nothing could be further from the truth. While judges have always played and continue to play an important role in the work of AJS, they are joined by a growing body of non-lawyer citizens, attorneys, scholars, civic and business leaders, educators, journalists, and others who care about our nation's courts. Everyone, regardless of profession, background, or economic status, deserves a fair and impartial hearing. And the protection of that basic right is what the American Judicature Society is all about. Many people may not know that AJS has active state chapters in several states. These chapters address issues of concern at the state and local level, helping to improve the delivery of justice from Hawaii to Texas to Washington State. People may also not know about the impact that AJS has on the global stage. Our publications and research are sought by judges and scholars around the world, and we have subscribers and members in Africa, Australia, Asia, Europe, and South America. One of the common misconceptions about AJS is that we are part of the judicial branch, or that we actually appoint judges or investigate allegations of misconduct by judges. Because we study issues relating to the judiciary and the jury system, we receive many calls and messages from people who are looking for help with a court case, trying to find a lawyer, or want to file a complaint about a specific judge. AJS does not take on individual cases. We are not a law firm or a public interest litigation shop. We study judicial ethics issues, but we don't investigate or prosecute judges for ethical lapses. Those functions are performed by official agencies within each state. We always take the time to explain what we do and what we can't and don't do to people who contact us looking for legal help. In many cases, we can point people to organizations or resources that can help them. In the process, we have an opportunity to educate members of the public, one at a time, about the judicial process. The American Judicature Society has achieved a number of notable accomplishments over the years. A functioning democracy demands a robust, independent judicial system, insulated from political influences and the shifting winds of public opinion, yet accountable for upholding the laws enacted by the people's elected representatives. It is a difficult balancing act, and one that often produces conflicting and strongly held opinions about the proper role of the judiciary. AJS has worked to educate members of the public outside the legal system and the courts about their vital role in the preservation of an impartial judiciary. Starting in the 1950s, AJS convened hundreds of citizens' conferences across the country, which led to important reforms that enjoyed broad public support. The founding leaders of AJS invented the system known as merit selection for judges, which took campaign money out of the equation and placed greater focus on the qualifications and experience of potential judges. In the early 20th century, AJS led the way in modernizing court procedures and structures, making it easier for all people to navigate and understand the rules of justice. Since 1917, AJS has published Judicature, a bi-monthly scholarly journal focusing on issues shaped in and by our justice system. It reaches more than 5,000 readers, including judges at all levels, attorneys, scholars, business and civic leaders, and many other AJS members and subscribers. More than 700 libraries in the U.S. and around the world subscribe to Judicature, greatly expanding the journal's reach to new generations of students and scholars of the courts. The AJS Center for Judicial Ethics serves as the nation's leading source of information and analysis on all aspects of judicial conduct, ethics, and discipline. AJS also sponsors major conferences and online educational programs on judicial ethics. Our quarterly publication, the Judicial Conduct Reporter, serves as an indispensable reference on judicial ethics. In the criminal justice system, we have worked to promote a better understanding of scientific principles and evidence in the courts. We have sponsored major conferences on criminal sentencing policies and recently published a groundbreaking scientific study on eyewitness identification procedures that promises to decrease the likelihood of convicting the innocent while increasing the chances of apprehending the guilty. Our first 100 years have been busy, but we're just getting started. The American Judicature Society was founded in 1913 in response to some dangerous pressures that were being directed at the American justice system. Today, a century later, the challenges we face are, for the most part, unchanged in nature. The details and context may have changed, but the intent of those seeking to insert their own agendas into the court system remains the same. Politicians and special interest groups will always seek to control the courts and gain an advantage. They are focused on short-term victories and are willing to sacrifice the independence and integrity of the justice system to serve their narrow goals. AJS is committed to protecting our justice system over the long term. But because our purview is long-term, it is sometimes more difficult to convey a sense of urgency for our cause. The political and financial pressures on the courts are ongoing. They present a real and ever-present danger that AJS is committed to fighting every day. The integrity of the justice system is worth whatever resources are required to preserve it. Like all nonprofit organizations, AJS relies upon contributions and grants from donors and foundations that receive many more funding requests than they can support. Our challenge has always been to draw connections between our work to safeguard the integrity of the justice system and the many other social and economic benefits that flow from a strong and effective judiciary. Supporters of our work will leave a legacy to future generations that guarantee a safe and fair place to resolve disputes and uphold the law. The American Judicature Society has been fighting the good fight to preserve and protect the integrity of the American justice system for a century. And we've had many successes in keeping partisan politics and special interest pressures from corrupting the courts. But there's so much more that needs to be done. With additional resources, we could expand our educational programs, delivering more content electronically to high school and college students, law students, lawyers and judges, civic groups, and others. We would be able to be more efficient in advancing proposals designed to further insulate the judiciary from politics. Additional resources would enhance our opportunities to provide expert testimony and technical assistance to individual states. We could develop a broadly based, bipartisan coalition to seize the advantage in the public debate about the role of courts in our society. Additional resources would make it possible for AJS to remain on the leading edge of defense against well-financed forces that would seek to bend the legal system to their own self-serving focus. AJS also works with major donors and foundations to expand support for applied research on the judicial system. Applied research, conducted in the real world with the goal of improving actual practices in our courts, is our strong suit. For example, AJS has conducted groundbreaking research in the field on eyewitness identifications through photo lineups in actual cases. This research shows that law enforcement and prosecutors can improve the accuracy of eyewitness identifications by adopting a number of proven best practices for conducting photo lineups with witnesses and victims. The policy recommendations that AJS advances on eyewitness identification will reduce the number of people who are mistakenly identified and wrongfully prosecuted, while enhancing the ability of law enforcement to identify and apprehend actual perpetrators of serious crimes. The American Judicature Society is moving confidently into its second century of helping to promote the highest standards for the American justice system and ensuring that it stands as a global model for fairness and impartiality. We take our mission to secure and promote an independent and qualified judiciary very seriously, and we're always seeking to improve our effectiveness toward meeting those goals. We constantly strive to reach out to new and younger audiences to explain the importance of our work. With additional resources, AJS could launch new initiatives to fill an important gap: the lack of a permanent, broadly based, public constituency to support fair and impartial courts. We have had success building public support for reforms in specific circumstances and moments in history, but it is a major challenge to create and sustain durable coalitions on justice system issues. When a controversy erupts or a particularly attractive reform proposal emerges, AJS and other organizations need to seize the opportunity to develop solid coalitions and organizations that can survive past one issue or one reform campaign. A fair and impartial hearing in the courts is something Americans must expect yet never take for granted. Educating the next generation of students about the importance of a level playing field in the courts is an ongoing, vital challenge. AJS is committed to meeting that challenge now and in the future.